Episode number 41.
When I had my near-death experiences, I didn't exit consciousness. I entered consciousness of a different form.
It doesn't have a whole lot to do with kinky sex or blood sacrifices. It is about having a relationship with the goddess through nature.
You know, you learn about cultures and you learn about people, and especially talking to the older generation, you learn about what it was like for them 60, 70 years ago, and that's just an eye-opening experience that I don't know where I would have found that if I wasn't in the milk truck.
Why didn't Yoko step in and say this isn't what he wanted?
Well, she did it.
She's the one who had him cremated.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, Yoko.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you anything. I'm going to stay as vague as possible.
Okay,
so.
good. Let me know if you hear a drone over your house. Hey everybody, Brant here from the Dance Past Sunset podcast. Super stoked to have Jay Hawley from Uber on the show, talking about all the different ways that the Uber network can help those of a certain age. That includes me and my 92-year-old mom use Uber cars to get around. Love the freedom, love the independence, and especially love the tips that Jay gives on how you, as maybe a boomer, can call a car for your mom who might live in another state. Did you know you could do that? Well, you can. Jay is the guy inside of Uber who has decided to focus on seniors and those who have special needs to use the Uber service, which is pretty cool. And he's come up with some nifty ways to do that. You'll want to make sure to tune in, listen to the show, and find out all the tricks and tips for using Uber for those who maybe have decided to hang up the keys for one reason or another. So check it out. Jay Hawley from Uber.
Hey, Brent, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you, sir?
I am doing very well, thank you.
Well, I'm a fan of Uber. I've been using it for years and years, and Jay, I sent you some pictures of how I used it on Mom. So
yeah, I know you said that you got her rolling. I'm going to have to go back and track down that email because I didn't catch the photos, but I'll look forward to that.
Well, I'll give you the summary. It was a flaming success.
Good.
Yeah, we tried it 3 or 4 times, and it was just fabulous every time. I mean, I got to give a big shout out to your drivers and say thank you, because in every case they were the perfect gentlemen.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I used your trick that you taught me in San Francisco.
Good. And
that worked like a charm, so I was really happy about that. And then I texted the drivers. In one case, I left my mom in her hair cuttery where she gets her hair done every week.
Yep.
And I texted the driver and said, please come into the hair cuttery and escort the elderly lady out. Her name is Margaret. Guy parked his car out front, walked in, found my mom very gently. I mean, these guys treat her like they treat their own mom.
I love that.
I loved it too. It was fantastic.
Good. Well, I'm glad that was a good experience. And Mom liked it too, huh?
Mom liked it too, yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, what was there not to like? All the cars were shiny and new. The drivers were perfect gentlemen. She regains that sense of independence. And I laugh at her because we recently had to hide her car keys. That's sad, you know. And that's why I think Uber is so important, because you're talking about giving something back to somebody they've had their whole adult lives, you know, this sense of freedom. I can come and go as I please, and all of a sudden you get to be 92 or whenever you get to a place where, you know, it's not safe for you to drive or you don't want to drive anymore, and suddenly you have your wings clipped. Uber, yep. You know, Uber restores that. It gives you back that independence, that sense of freedom, and that the sense I'm still an adult. You know, I can still come and go as I want. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan. Yeah. So why don't we start by where it all started, which was in San Francisco, right, Jay?
That's right.
Yeah, you were there at Aging 2.0, which is a conference focused on innovations solving the biggest problems in aging, which is a real testament to Uber's interest in people of a certain age. I'll put it that way. It's a polite way to put it.
That's perfect.
And you guys had a booth, and I kind of found my way. I was a volunteer, and I found my way down between sessions and grabbed you and said, "Hey, how do I use Uber for my mom? Because I live in Virginia and she lives in Maryland, and I can't always be there." And you said, "Hey, man, let me show you a few tricks." So you taught me some things I didn't know about the app, as is. So no changes needed. I mean, you can use the app today to call a car for somebody who's far away, right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah, it's built into the regular old app that's available on the App Store. It's available through the Google Play Store. And when you open the app, all you have to do is go to that Where To screen, where we're asking you, where do you want to go? And when you tap in that box and start moving the pin, as we call it, to your pickup location, and we recognize that it's not right there where you are, we're going to say, "Hey, is this a ride for somebody else?" And as you saw, you could toggle that over to your mother and set that up to get her a ride somewhere instead of just calling a ride for yourself.
Yeah, and I tried it. It works like a charm. And in the show notes, there'll be a little link to a little tutorial where you can see how I did what I did. So I gave it the mom test, and you guys passed with flying colors. And there was something else I found in the app that I didn't know was there. And this is also really cool if you're going to be doing this regularly for somebody else, a loved one, and that is saved places. Tell me about saved places.
Yeah, so the idea there is if you've got those places that you always want to go, rather than having to search by the name or type in the address every time, you can have that list of places. Maybe it's your best friend's house, maybe it's the library where you go every Tuesday, perhaps your favorite place to go shopping. I use it to get to and from work every day. I have those saved in my app so that without having to tap around and type a bunch of things in, really at the touch of one button, you can say, "Hey, I'm going to that place I always go," and you'll be on your way.
Right. Love it. What I noticed is that you have to actually be en route to save a place. Okay, which makes it a little complicated if you're not living close to mom or dad, and that means you have to actually get in the car with them. And we're I'm operating under the assumption that mom or dad don't have their own smartphone, and so you're calling the car using your smartphone on their behalf. But to save a place, you actually have to be en route to that location, and then you can save it. Are there any plans to make it so that I could populate the Uber app with half a dozen saved places that I know my mom or dad likes to go, hairdresser, doctor, senior center, etc., without actually having to be en route to any of those? Any plans for that?
I suspect those are the types of things that might be coming, but that's a different product team that's working on that. I will be sure to bring them the feedback that that could be an easier experience for you.
Well, there you go. I would love to see that. Yeah, that would be great because then, of course, I'm in Virginia. I could just put in the half a dozen places I know my mom always goes without actually have to getting in the car with her for all of those. Okay, cool. Well, good for that.
One of the great things about that Saved Places feature is that if you're going to the same places over and over at the same times of day or the same times of the week, you don't even necessarily have to go in and save it as as one of your saved places. Your Uber app is going to recognize, hey, every Tuesday morning you go down to the library, and when you open your app on a Tuesday morning, it's going to just ask you, hey, are you headed to the library again? And without having to go through that Saved Places process, it's very likely going to be one of the suggested destinations.
Wow. Wow, cool.
I know where you're going.
Neat. I like that. I like that a lot. So, Jay, tell me, I mean, you're a young guy, at least relative to me. What motivated you to, other than your boss, or maybe Emily telling you to go to the Aging 2.0 conference in San Francisco, what motivated you to go, and what role do you play inside of Uber?
Yeah, great question. So I work here in product strategy at Uber, really focusing on taking ways to make our existing network of drivers more accessible to broader groups of people. And I specifically focus in the context of seniors and healthcare related transportation. And when we think about participating in things like Aging 2.0, it's really part of our overall strategy of trying to make this network of vehicles more accessible to more people. We touched on it, but when you think about the big issues that seniors are facing, the baby boomer generation is the largest demographic in history, will live longer than any other generation. And we know that about 40% of seniors have a smartphone, and yet only about 4% of them have used a product like Uber. And we firmly believe that products like Uber and services like what we're offering can provide a high level of independence for individuals who maybe have had the keys taken away or simply want to have the convenience of getting out and seeing their town, experiencing their community without having the responsibility of operating a vehicle.
And let's not forget that some of those seniors just want to go out and drink.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, and that's how a lot of folks come to find out about it.
They want to party.
They're making the responsible decision, and absolutely.
Yeah, let's not overlook that. So you mentioned seniors and healthcare as, kind of that's your focus, right? Is that your primary? Is that your only focus or just your primary focus?
Those are the two things that I spend my all day, every day working on.
That's amazing. And that's so cool because, there is a lot of kind of synergy and crossover there. So mobility is a common thread there. You could have somebody who's very, a younger person that is wheelchair bound, so to speak. And that's also very common with older folks, my mom being one of them. So when it comes to actually calling a car that can also take the wheelchair, how does that fit into the strategy? Is there a way for me to say, hey, I got a wheelchair and you're going to need to pick it up and throw it in the trunk for me? What's the best practices for that?
Yeah, absolutely. In many cities, we have products live on the road. We've got a vehicle type. If you open the app and you're selecting between the different car types that are available, one of those car types is called Uber Wave. So it's WAV for wheelchair accessible vehicle. Ooh. And it's something that we're working on building up. We want it to continue to be part of our core strategy. Admittedly, it's fairly early days for that product, and certainly it is not as prolific as our UberX product, or kind of our core service that has many, many more cars on the road, but it's a distinct need, and it's something that our customers have told us they care about.
I like that a lot. That's great. How is that different from Uber Assist?
So great question. Uber Assist really takes UberX, which is our curb-to-curb service, and makes it into more of a door-to-door service. So you order an UberX, the car comes outside your home or your place of business, wherever you happen to be, and will take you where you're going. If you order Uber Assist, you're going to get a driver who's maybe had a little bit of additional training. They know the most appropriate ways to help someone in and out of a car. They know the right way to fold up a walker. And they'll be able to help you all the way from the door of your house into the vehicle and back again, as opposed to just leaving you at the curb with when you need that extra level of service.
Well, that's kind of what my mom got when we did the mom test. I texted the driver and said, the passenger's an elderly lady, she'll need assistance. And they just as gentlemen, they got out of the car and helped her in and buckled her in and everything. It was great.
Yeah, we've got some great drivers out there, and the way our whole model is set up, our drivers are independent contractors, which really, in one way of looking at it, means that they are small business owners, and we find that they oftentimes like to provide a high level of service to individuals, and sometimes all you have to do is ask. So I'm thrilled to hear that your mom had a top-notch experience. Yeah,
and when it was over, I naturally gave them high marks, 5 stars, and a little tip. So, for listeners out there, if you choose to use Uber this way, I would recommend that you thank the drivers and reward them for providing that extra level of assistance and care like they did for my mom. Give them a good rating, give them a 5 and throw them a few bucks extra. They'd appreciate it. Well, that's cool. So they, in a lot of ways, they provide Uber Assist without really even having to be designated Uber Assist just because they're pros. What about those few, when it happens, that maybe aren't so good? How do they get weeded out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way the network is established is that it's interesting to talk about where we're kind of coming from. So if you think about it, Brad, I'm sure you've taken a taxi or two in your life. Mm-hmm. And if you have,
are we allowed to use the T word on this podcast?
We can touch on that. Yeah, we aren't.
You said it. I didn't.
We know it's not the only way to get across town, and that's we're perfectly fine with that. Have you ever had a bad experience in a taxi?
I have. Yeah.
Ever been so bad that you called the dispatcher and complained about your cab ride?
No, never.
It doesn't happen very often. Almost everybody we talk to can tell us that they've had a negative experience in a taxi, but nobody ever calls home to tell the taxi company that there was a negative experience on the road. Every single Uber trip, at the end of every ride, riders are prompted to provide feedback and rate that driver. So you mentioned, given the 5 stars, that ratings and feedback system is fundamental to the way the network is established. And that gives us very valuable data points to make sure that we really do maintain a high level of service and that people are happy using Uber. And it goes both ways. The driver rates the rider as well. And we like to think that that encourages people to maintain their civility, be polite, and treat people as people, which is very, very important to what we're doing here.
Jay, are you a Portlandia fan?
I can't say I am. I don't know that I've seen it.
You know the show, though, right?
I'm familiar with it, yes.
Yeah, they skewer the culture of Portland, which is my second favorite. Next to my own home, I love Portland, and I've spent many months out there. But there's one episode where they learn that the driver actually rates the passenger too, which a lot of people don't know. And suddenly the one woman, one of the 2 comedians on the show, gets paranoid about her rating because all of her friends have got a 5 and she finds out she's only got like a 4.3 or something. So she can't figure out why she's not rating higher. So they start giving her tips on how to get a higher rating with the driver, and it all goes to hell. So it's actually quite a funny show. You probably should look it up.
I'll check that out.
So let's talk about safety a little bit because obviously a lot of seniors have got concerns about safety, especially when it comes to using a shared car service. What do you have to say to them?
Yeah, we touched on it with the ratings thing. That is one of the most important pieces, that we are getting that constant feedback loop to make sure we understand what's going on out there. But it really goes much, much deeper than that. Before you even get in that car, let's think of it again, use the taxi example. A cab pulls up. You don't really know anything about that individual. You just see that they happen to paint their car yellow and put a light on top of it. Before your Uber arrives, you're going to see a photo of your driver. You're going to see their name. You're going to see what type of car they're driving, the license plate number, and so forth. So you make sure that you're getting into the right car and you get to see who that individual is who's coming to pick you up. Builds a little bit of trust right there at the outset. But also there's GPS tracking enabled. So we have a GPS signal coming from each of these drivers' cars. And not only can you sit in the back seat in that car and look on the map and make sure that you're making progress in the right direction. You're not being taken for a ride. You're not being taken to the wrong place. You're headed to your intended destination. You can also share that information with friends, family members, loved ones. Maybe it's you're running late for the party and you just want to let them know that you're on your way. Or maybe you want perhaps your adult children to be able to keep an eye on things and have somebody else kind of making sure that you're getting where you're going. So
love it.
System of transparency to make sure it's abundantly clear what's going on there.
Yeah, I definitely feel very comfortable. You've got strategy in your mission. Can I put in another request that you make the picture of the driver bigger?
I will take that feedback. I appreciate it.
It's like so small. It just looks like half of a pencil eraser. I never can tell.
I hear you.
And if, as long as I'm going, crazy with suggestions here, let's go blue sky, because I'm going to want to ask you next about kind of what do you see in the future? What's coming for Uber? And I'll start by actually putting in another request. So this is like a visionary thing, that Brant is calling an Uber car for his mom, who does not have a smartphone, but she does have a TV, or she has, let's say, like an Echo Show that's got a screen, right? So she's got a screen in her life somewhere. And I call the car. I get the driver. I see that the driver's Dominic, and that is driving a Toyota with license plate 1234567. And that's the important information that I need to get to my mom, because she's going to want to know that when she sees somebody that she doesn't know come to the front door, she recognizes him. So I just want to be able to send the driver's face, his name, and his license plate and car make and model to my mom's screen, whatever it is, TV, Echo Show, whatever, so that she sees that information. Brand has called you a car. Here's who's coming. That would be cool, wouldn't it?
I love that idea. Yeah.
Okay, let's get working on it.
Yeah, you can. Those are the types of details you can share with somebody if they've got a mobile device. If we can send them the information into their cell phone, very easy to do. Don't have the hookups with mom's TV yet, but I love the idea.
Yeah, and I think that's really the fly in the ointment, so to speak, is that a lot of seniors, and you gave some statistics that the smartphone penetration is pretty low. So the higher up you get, my mom's 92. She's never going to have a smartphone. I don't know at what point people start getting them. The more important question is, when do they start getting them and actually using them for something other than a phone? Do they actually use the app? Can they use the app? A lot of apps, of course, they're confined by the size of the screen, so things are very small. You get to be a certain age and your eyesight is impaired. You need cheaters to see anything. You need more light. These are all problems that come with age that a lot of app designers don't understand. So, you give me the picture, but it's so small, it's useless information to me. So what do you see coming that kind of helps a whole generation of people that aren't using smartphones to take advantage of the Uber service?
Absolutely. One of the things that, as you mentioned, we know is that not only, as you said, is there low penetration of smartphones among seniors, many of those seniors aren't using those smartphones to what might be their fullest potential. So
right.
Rather than go through it, and I think the app is very easy to use, and what we find is that when we sit down with seniors and show them how to use the app and they start using it, they take to it very quickly, just like many folks do, and people generally very much enjoy using the service. So it's a leap worth taking, and it's something that we encourage everybody to try, of course, but we also are realistic about it and know that your mom is not getting that smartphone, and that's why we have functionality in the app that will allow you to order a ride for mom. But we also have other services that are not app-based, that are completely outside of the smartphone ecosystem. We have an ordering platform called Uber Central, for example, where, let's say, for example, your mother always goes to a bridge club at a local community center. If that community center has access to Uber Central, if they have a computer there, they can log into Uber Central and actually send a ride to mom, pick her up, and bring her in. And
wow.
Can do the exact same thing the other direction. And if she's able to get text messages, we can give her something like the Uber experience and tell her all that pertinent information of what car to be looking for and when it's showing up. But even if she doesn't, she's sitting there talking to somebody who is acting as an operator of Uber Central and can order those trips and relay that information to her.
So is Uber Central then a browser-based system that allows, say, my mom's senior center, that when, because that was the problem. I mean, I could get the car to take her there. It was getting her home that was a problem, because when she was ready to come home, she didn't have a smartphone. She would have to then find a phone, call me. I'd have to call them, get a little messy. But if the senior center, you're saying that with a browser, they could just get onto this thing called Uber Central and they could call a car?
Absolutely.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I wonder how many assisted living and senior centers and places that, heck, anybody could use that. A restaurant could use it.
Absolutely.
Is it restricted? I mean, are there any restrictions to who can get on Uber Central?
You have to sign up and register with an account, but we're not too picky on it. We even see car dealerships using it, and we're seeing people that are, if you drop your car off at a service station, rather than taking one of their techs off the floor and having them drive you home, they can order you an Uber right from there. So yeah, the use cases abound there.
Jay, you're just full of all kinds of tips and tricks that, that I don't think a lot of people know about. This is amazing. This is the secret sauce here. So you see into the secret laboratories of Uber and all the cool things that they're going to do. What can you share?
Yeah, I of course I can't divulge too much about the product roadmap here, but I think we're very excited about the future of some of this stuff. I mean, you're starting to see these things show up. You noticed when we were talking live here in San Francisco about the order for another individual, we have things like Central, and then to go a step further, integrating with systems like Google Home, Amazon Alexa, Apple's Siri. You can just tell Siri you need a ride, and you're on your way home. So really trying to remove the dependence on our app, which we really love, and we think it's gotten us to great places, but opening that network of vehicles up to broader and broader pools of people, order by voice, Braille display compatibility, all these types of things that traditional app users might not be able to access our network, and just making it more accessible for more people.
What about the new class of personal digital assistant like Google Home and Echo? What do you guys have an Alexa service?
We do. We absolutely do. We are integrated with Alexa. We're integrated with Google Home. And hey Siri, get me an UberX Home.
Uber can get you an UberX in 60 seconds. Do you want to request it?
No thanks.
Okay, so you're integrated with Siri, Google Home, Alexa. Yeah. So you've got an Alexa skill, you got the equivalent on Google Home and Siri. Fantastic. So you were about ready to divulge some top secrets of or not. What else can you share about, where you see the future going? Or maybe some things that you think your team would like to do, that you aspire to do, that you look out and you say, we have a feeling this is where people would like to go, and maybe you'd like some feedback.
Yeah, the biggest thing for us is making our network as reliable as possible. So that means more cars in more places, technology that more people can use, opening up new levels of service to make this approachable for people at new price points. This shouldn't be a luxury service. It should be a fundamental way that people get around and enjoy their communities. So we are working hard to make sure that this is easy to use, and it's also easy to afford.
What about some third-party services? That there have been some that I've used, some with success, some not. What is Uber's attitude towards cultivating a community of third-party developers that are building services around the core Uber network?
Yeah, that's a great question. Apple and Amazon and Google aren't the only ones that are using these services. We have a number of folks that are seeing the power of Uber's network and really wanting to leverage it in new and different ways. One of my favorite examples, there's a retired couple in Atlanta that recognized specifically that seniors weren't able to have access to Uber because of some of the problems that we've been discussing, lack of a smartphone or lack of an interest in learning how to use one. And so they went out and bought 10 or 15 iPhones and loaded up a bunch of Uber apps and started advertising a phone number that people could call. And they created a nonprofit called Common Courtesy, and they were able to take phone calls from people that said, hey, I need to get an Uber somewhere. And they took these stacks and stacks of iPhones, and I can only imagine them throwing them back and forth across the living room as their phone was ringing to help coordinate these trips. But they jumped through some pretty serious hurdles to get people access to the Uber network. And we found out they were doing this, and we rolled out Uber Central to them, and we now power Common Courtesy, and we have we no longer have them playing football with iPhones trying to order Ubers, but it really shows the power of the network and the power of what Uber can provide to people and the importance of finding new ways to get it to the people who need it most.
Nice. So now let's talk a little bit about some of these communities, and I'm thinking of the Villages down in Florida, which is,
Sure.
Do you know them?
Of course, it's huge.
Yeah, they're huge, and they're kind of a golf cart community. So, they're not using gas-powered cars. They're using something smaller, and I think we're going to see more and more electric-powered vehicles. Some of them fairly modest, maybe not built for highway speeds, but for going up to the grocery store, picking up some milk, or taking the dog to the vet or something like that, short trip things. And ultimately, obviously, those will be autonomous vehicles. How does Uber fit in strategically to a world of light electric powered vehicles?
That's a great question. I don't know that we have plans on our roadmap to empower golf carts or anything of that nature. I don't know that we're going to be zipping around in golf carts in the Villages, though, as fun as that might be. One of the world's foremost thought leaders in the world of pickleball lives in the Villages. Pickle Pong Deb puts out a lot of great YouTube videos.
Jay, wait a minute. You're way too young to know about pickleball.
These are the important things.
You should still be on the tennis court, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? Sometimes you got to downscale a little bit to be able to compete. I don't know that the ecosystem needs to change much. I think if you're in a place where you can have access to vehicles or where someone can come pick you up, you can use Uber, and that's a big part of where we are and where we're going. Just making it more available to more places.
But I think I've also I believe heard maybe in Pittsburgh that you guys are experimenting with autonomous vehicles, so that the Uber network is just instead of having a human driver, you just have a robotic one, and it still does the same. At the end of the day, it still provides the same service. It delivers a vehicle to your front door and takes you where you want to go. Yes?
Absolutely. We're still at a point with those vehicles right now where instead of having 0 drivers, they don't have one, they actually have 2. There's someone sitting in the driver's seat operating the traditional controls, and they've got an engineer riding shotgun, so to speak, watching all the computers, making sure that everything's running smoothly. But yeah, that's a big part of our future development strategy, that we believe that self-driving is the future, and we're committed to being part of it. And I don't know when we will solve that problem, and I don't know when that problem will be solved, but it's definitely something that Uber is excited to be a part of.
It's coming a whole heck of a lot faster than I thought it would, which I love. I just think that autonomous vehicles, probably be too late for my mom, but self-driving cars is just an amazing development for everybody, but especially for older people. That they don't have to worry about anything. They just hail a robotic car and it comes. It's wonderful. Yeah, I can't wait either. So let's go way out in the future and let's talk about the Uber hovercraft. Tell me about that. Just teasing. All right. Well, good. I think I've come to the end. Is there anything else you'd like to tell my audience, which is boomers and their aging parents, about where Uber's going and what they might want to know about Uber that they probably don't?
I think the most important thing, Brant, here is that we've built this thing to be as easy to use as possible. It might sound intimidating to open up an iPhone app and call a car to get across town, but give it a shot. And we find that most people generally have a very good experience and really enjoy using our products.
And thank you, Jay, for coming on the show and cluing us in on all those cool tips and tricks that will make the Uber network even more useful. Appreciate it. And thanks to my audience for joining us on this show. We had a great time and hope you learned something valuable. Don't forget, there is the tutorial that you'll find in the show notes that will show you how I use the Uber network with my mom. I think you'll find it useful. Coming up on my next show will be a woman who has designed a really nifty system for capturing the memories of your loved ones, something I have a personal interest in. So be sure to come back to dancepastsunset.com. Better yet, sign up for the newsletter, which I use to notify folks of new news, or go to my Facebook page, Dance Past Sunset. You'll find it all there. Until then, elves and elvettes, this is your host, Brant Huddleston, signing off.